Welcome back to our Bible quiz. Round 61, the book of Genesis in detail. Question 1. What does the name Genesis mean, and why is it significant for the book's content? Answer: Genesis means beginning or origin. It is significant because the book details the beginning of the world, humanity, sin, God's covenant with Israel, and the patriarchs. Question 2. Describe the 6 days of creation as outlined in Genesis 1. What was created on each day? Answer: Day 1, light and darkness. Day 2, the expanse, sky, separating waters. Day 3, dry land, seas, and vegetation. Day 4, sun, moon, and stars. Day 5, sea creatures and birds. Day 6, land animals and humans. Question 3. What was the significance of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the Garden of Eden? Answer: The tree of the knowledge of good and evil represented humanity's choice to obey or disobey God. Eating from it led to the knowledge of good and evil, sin, and separation from God. Question 4. Who were Cain and Abel, and what was the outcome of their interaction? Answer: Cain and Abel were the first two sons of Adam and Eve. Cain, a farmer, offered a sacrifice that was not accepted by God, while Abel, a shepherd, offered an acceptable sacrifice. Out of jealousy, Cain murdered Abel. Question 5. How did Noah find favor in the eyes of the Lord, leading to the building of the ark? Answer: Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. This righteousness led God to choose him to build the ark and save his family and animals from the flood. Question 6. What was the purpose of the Tower of Babel, and how did God intervene? Answer: The people of Babel sought to build a tower that would reach to the heavens, making a name for themselves and preventing their dispersion. God intervened by confusing their language, scattering them across the earth. Question 7. Detail God's covenant with Abraham, including the promises made and the sign of the covenant. Answer: God promised Abraham numerous descendants, a great nation, blessing to all families of the earth through him, and the land of Canaan. The sign of the covenant was circumcision for all males in his household. Question 8. Who was Isaac, and what significant event in his life demonstrated Abraham's faith? Answer: Isaac was the son of Abraham and Sarah, born in their old age as a fulfillment of God's promise. The significant event demonstrating Abraham's faith was God's command to sacrifice Isaac on Mount Moriah, which Abraham was willing to do before God provided a ram instead. Question 9. Recount the story of Jacob and Esau, focusing on their birthright and blessing. Answer: Jacob and Esau were twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah. Esau, the elder, sold his birthright to Jacob for a bowl of stew. Later, Jacob, with his mother's help, deceived his blind father Isaac into giving him the blessing intended for Esau. Question 10. Summarize the life of Joseph, from being sold into slavery to becoming a ruler in Egypt. Answer: Joseph was sold into slavery by his jealous brothers, served in Potiphar's house, was unjustly imprisoned, interpreted dreams for Pharaoh, and eventually rose to become the second in command in Egypt, saving his family and many others from famine. Round 62. The Book of Exodus in detail. Question 1. What is the central theme of the Book of Exodus? Answer: The central theme of Exodus is God's deliverance of Israel from slavery in Egypt, the establishment of his covenant with them, and the giving of the law. Question 2. Describe the circumstances of Moses' birth and his early life in Egypt. Answer: Moses was born to Hebrew parents during a time when Pharaoh ordered all male Hebrew infants to be killed. His mother hid him in a basket in the Nile River, where he was found by Pharaoh's daughter and raised in the Egyptian palace. Question 3. How did God call Moses to lead the Israelites, and what was Moses' initial reaction? Answer: God called Moses from a burning bush on Mount Horeb, instructing him to go to Pharaoh and demand the release of the Israelites. Moses initially resisted, citing his speech impediment and questioning his own ability. Question 4. Detail at least 5 of the 10 plagues God sent upon Egypt. Answer: Plague 1. water turned to blood. Plague 2, frogs. Plague 3, gnats. Plague 4, flies. Plague 5, livestock disease. Plague 6, boils. Plague 7, hail. Plague 8, locusts. Plague 9, darkness. Plague 10, death of the firstborn. Question 5. What was the significance of the Passover, and how was it observed? Answer. The Passover commemorated God's deliverance of the Israelites from the 10th plague. They were instructed to sacrifice a lamb, paint its blood on their doorposts, and eat the roasted meat with unleavened bread and bitter herbs. The angel of death would pass over the houses with the blood. Question 6. Recount the miraculous crossing of the Red Sea. Answer. The Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and the pursuing Egyptian army. God instructed Moses to stretch out his staff, and the sea parted, allowing the Israelites to cross on dry ground. When the Egyptians followed, the waters returned, drowning them. Question 7. What provisions did God make for the Israelites in the wilderness after leaving Egypt? Answer. God provided manna, bread from heaven, and quail for food, and water from a rock to sustain the Israelites in the wilderness. Question 8. Describe the giving of the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. Answer. God descended upon Mount Sinai in fire, smoke, and thunder, and gave Moses the 10 Commandments, which formed the basis of the covenant between God and Israel, outlining their moral and religious obligations. Question 9. What was the purpose and design of the tabernacle? Answer. The tabernacle was a portable sanctuary where God's presence dwelt among the Israelites. It was designed according to God's specific instructions and contained the Ark of the Covenant, the table of showbread, the golden lampstand, and the altar of incense. Question 10. What was the incident of the golden calf, and what were its consequences? Answer. While Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving the law, the Israelites grew impatient and convinced Aaron to make a golden calf for them to worship. This idolatry angered God, resulting in the breaking of the stone tablets, a plague, and the death of many Israelites. Round 63, the book of Leviticus in detail. Question 1. What is the primary focus of the book of Leviticus? Answer. The primary focus of Leviticus is holiness, how a sinful people can approach and maintain a relationship with a holy God through sacrifices, priesthood, and purity laws. Question 2. Describe the 5 main types of offerings detailed in Leviticus. Answer. Burnt offering, a voluntary act of worship, completely consumed by fire. Grain offering, a voluntary offering of fine flour, oil, and incense. Peace offering, a voluntary offering expressing thanksgiving and fellowship. Sin offering, a mandatory offering for unintentional sins. Guilt offering, a mandatory offering for specific sins requiring restitution. Question 3. What was the role of the priesthood, and who was appointed as the first high priest? Answer. The priesthood served as mediators between God and the people, offering sacrifices and teaching the law. Aaron, Moses' brother, was appointed as the first high priest. Question 4. Explain the concept of clean and unclean animals as outlined in Leviticus 11. Answer. Clean animals were those permitted for food, such as animals with divided hooves that chew the cud, and fish with fins and scales. Unclean animals were forbidden, including pigs, camels, and shellfish. These laws emphasized separation and purity. Question 5. What was the significance of the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur? Answer. The Day of Atonement was the most solemn day of the year, when the high priest entered the Holy of Holies to make atonement for the sins of the entire nation, cleansing the sanctuary and the people. Question 6. Describe the process of the scapegoat ritual on the Day of Atonement. Answer. 2 goats were chosen. One was sacrificed as a sin offering. The high priest laid his hands on the head of the second goat, the scapegoat, confessing the sins of Israel over it, and then it was led away into the wilderness, symbolizing the removal of sin. Question 7. What were the laws concerning leprosy and other skin diseases? Answer. Leprosy and severe skin diseases rendered a person ceremonially unclean, requiring isolation from the camp. The priest was responsible for diagnosing the disease and declaring the person clean once healed, followed by specific cleansing rituals. Question 8. Explain the concept of the Year of Jubilee. Answer: the Year of Jubilee occurred every 50th year. It was a time of restoration and release, where slaves were freed, debts were forgiven, and land was returned to its original owners, emphasizing God's ownership of the land and his provision. Question 9. What were the laws regarding sexual morality and relationships? Answer: Leviticus outlines strict laws regarding sexual morality, prohibiting incest, adultery, homosexuality, and bestiality, emphasizing the sanctity of marriage and the family unit. Question 10. How does Leviticus emphasize the holiness of God and the requirement for his people to be holy? Answer: Leviticus repeatedly states, "Be holy, for I am holy." It emphasizes that God's presence requires purity, and the laws provided a framework for the Israelites to live distinctively from surrounding nations, reflecting God's character. Round 64. The Book of Numbers in detail. Question 1. Why is the book called Numbers? And what is its Hebrew title? Answer: the book is called Numbers because it begins and ends with a census of the Israelite tribes. Its Hebrew title is Bamidbar, meaning in the wilderness, which accurately reflects its setting. Question 2. Describe the organization of the Israelite camp around the tabernacle. Answer: the camp was organized with the tabernacle in the center, surrounded by the Levites. The other 12 tribes were arranged in specific positions around the Levites, facing the tabernacle, emphasizing God's central presence. Question 3. What was the role of the Levites in relation to the tabernacle? Answer: the Levites were set apart for the service of the tabernacle. They were responsible for its transport, setup, and maintenance, assisting the priests in their duties. Question 4. Recount the story of the 12 spies sent to explore Canaan. Answer: Moses sent 12 spies, one from each tribe, to explore Canaan. 10 returned with a discouraging report of giants and fortified cities, while 2, Joshua and Caleb, urged the people to trust God and take the land. Question 5. What was the consequence of the Israelites' rebellion after hearing the spies' report? Answer: the Israelites rebelled, refusing to enter Canaan. As a consequence, God declared that that generation would wander in the wilderness for 40 years until they died, and only their children, along with Joshua and Caleb, would enter the promised land. Question 6. Describe the rebellion of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Answer: Korah, Dathan, and Abiram led a rebellion against the leadership of Moses and Aaron, challenging their authority. God judged them by causing the earth to open and swallow them and their followers. Question 7. What was the incident involving Moses striking the rock, and what was his punishment? Answer: when the people complained about a lack of water, God told Moses to speak to a rock. Instead, in anger, Moses struck the rock twice. Because he did not honor God as holy before the people, he was forbidden from entering the promised land. Question 8. Recount the story of the bronze serpent. Answer: when the Israelites complained, God sent venomous snakes among them. After they repented, God instructed Moses to make a bronze serpent and put it on a pole. Anyone who was bitten and looked at the bronze serpent lived. Question 9. Who was Balaam, and what was his interaction with King Balak? Answer: Balaam was a prophet hired by King Balak of Moab to curse Israel. However, God intervened, even speaking through Balaam's donkey, and compelled Balaam to bless Israel instead of cursing them. Question 10. What was the significance of the cities of refuge? Answer: the cities of refuge were designated towns where a person who had accidentally killed someone could flee for protection from the avenger of blood until a fair trial could be held, ensuring justice and preventing endless blood feuds. Round 65. The Book of Deuteronomy in detail. Question 1. What is the meaning of the title Deuteronomy, and what is its primary purpose? Answer: Deuteronomy means second law or repetition of the law. Its primary purpose is Moses' restatement and exposition of the law to the new generation of Israelites before they enter the promised land. Question 2. Where does the setting of Deuteronomy take place? Answer. The setting is the plains of Moab, just across the Jordan River from Jericho, on the threshold of the Promised Land. Question 3. What is the Shema, and why is it central to Jewish faith? Answer. The Shema, Deuteronomy 6 verses 4 to 5, is the central confession of Jewish faith. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Question 4. How does Moses summarize the history of Israel's wilderness wanderings in his first address? Answer. Moses recounts their journey from Mount Sinai, their rebellion at Kadesh Barnea, the 40 years of wandering, and their recent victories over King Sihon and Og, emphasizing God's faithfulness despite their failures. Question 5. What are the blessings and curses outlined in Deuteronomy 28? Answer. Deuteronomy 28 outlines blessings for obedience to God's covenant, prosperity, health, victory, and severe curses for disobedience, disease, famine, defeat, exile, serving as a stark warning to the nation. Question 6. Describe the requirements for a future king of Israel as stated in Deuteronomy 17. Answer. A future king must be chosen by God, an Israelite, not acquire many horses, especially from Egypt, not take many wives, not accumulate excessive wealth, and must write a copy of the law and read it daily. Question 7. What instructions were given regarding the treatment of the poor and marginalized? Answer. The law required generosity and justice toward the poor, widows, orphans, and foreigners. This included leaving gleanings in the fields, forgiving debts every 7 years, and ensuring fair wages. Question 8. How does Deuteronomy emphasize the importance of passing down the law to future generations? Answer. Parents were commanded to teach the law diligently to their children, talking about it constantly. At home, on the road, when lying down, and when rising up, to ensure the covenant was remembered and kept. Question 9. What is the significance of the Song of Moses in Deuteronomy 32? Answer. The Song of Moses is a prophetic poem that recounts God's faithfulness, Israel's future rebellion and idolatry, God's subsequent judgment, and his ultimate vindication and restoration of his people. Question 10. Describe the death of Moses and the transition of leadership to Joshua. Answer. Moses viewed the promised land from Mount Nebo but was not allowed to enter. He died there and God buried him. Joshua, who had been commissioned and filled with the spirit of wisdom, succeeded him as leader. Round 66. The Book of Joshua in detail. Question 1. What is the central theme of the Book of Joshua? Answer. The central theme is God's faithfulness in fulfilling his promise to give the land of Canaan to the Israelites, and their successful conquest and settlement under Joshua's leadership. Question 2. Describe the crossing of the Jordan River. Answer. The priests carrying the Ark of the Covenant stepped into the Jordan River, and the waters miraculously stopped flowing, allowing the entire nation to cross on dry ground, similar to the Red Sea crossing. Question 3. What was the significance of the memorial stones set up at Gilgal? Answer. 12 stones were taken from the middle of the Jordan River and set up at Gilgal as a permanent memorial to remind future generations of God's miraculous provision in bringing them into the land. Question 4. Recount the story of Rahab and the spies in Jericho. Answer. Joshua sent 2 spies to Jericho. Rahab, a prostitute, hid them from the king's men and expressed her faith in Israel's God. In return, the spies promised to spare her and her family when the city was attacked. Question 5. Describe the strategy and outcome of the Battle of Jericho. Answer. God instructed the Israelites to march around Jericho once a day for 6 days, and 7 times on the 7th day, with priests blowing trumpets. On the 7th day, the people shouted, the walls collapsed, and the city was taken. Question 6. What was the sin of Achan, and what were its consequences at the Battle of Ai? Answer. Achan disobeyed God's command by taking devoted things, plunder, from Jericho. This sin caused Israel's defeat at the small city of Ai. Achan and his family were subsequently stoned and burned. Question 7. How did the Gibeonites deceive Joshua and the Israelites? Answer: the Gibeonites, fearing destruction, disguised themselves as travelers from a distant land with worn-out clothes and moldy bread. They tricked Joshua into making a treaty of peace with them, which Israel was bound to honor. Question 8. Describe the miracle that occurred during the battle against the 5 Amorite kings. Answer: during the battle against the 5 Amorite kings, Joshua prayed, and God caused the sun and moon to stand still for a full day, allowing the Israelites to complete their victory. God also sent large hailstones upon the enemy. Question 9. How was the promised land divided among the tribes of Israel? Answer: the land was divided by lot among the 9.5 tribes on the west side of the Jordan, while 2.5 tribes had already received their inheritance on the east side. The Levites received cities scattered throughout the tribes. Question 10. What was Joshua's final challenge to the Israelites before his death? Answer: Joshua challenged the people to choose whom they would serve, the gods of their ancestors or the Lord. He famously declared, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." Round 67. The Book of Judges in detail. Question 1. What is the recurring cycle described in the Book of Judges? Answer: the cycle consists of Israel's rebellion and idolatry, God's judgment by allowing them to be oppressed by enemies, Israel's cry for help, God raising up a judge to deliver them, and a period of peace until the judge dies and the cycle repeats. Question 2. Who was Othniel and what did he accomplish? Answer: Othniel was the first judge, the younger brother of Caleb. He delivered Israel from the oppression of Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Aram-Naharaim, and the land had peace for 40 years. Question 3. Describe the story of Ehud and his assassination of King Eglon. Answer: Ehud, a left-handed judge, delivered Israel from the Moabites. He gained a private audience with the fat King Eglon, drew a concealed sword with his left hand, and assassinated him, leading to Israel's victory. Question 4. Who was Deborah, and how did she lead Israel to victory? Answer: Deborah was a prophetess and judge who held court under a palm tree. She summoned Barak to lead the army against the Canaanite general Sisera. The victory was secured when Jael, a Kenite woman, killed Sisera with a tent peg. Question 5. Recount the story of Gideon, focusing on his fleece and his small army. Answer: Gideon was called by God to deliver Israel from the Midianites. He tested God with a fleece, wet fleece/dry ground, then dry fleece/wet ground. God reduced his army from 32,000 to 300 men, who defeated the Midianites using trumpets and torches in jars. Question 6. Who was Jephthah, and what was his tragic vow? Answer: Jephthah was a mighty warrior who delivered Israel from the Ammonites. He made a rash vow to sacrifice whatever came out of his house to meet him upon his victorious return. Tragically, it was his only daughter. Question 7. Describe the birth and Nazirite vow of Samson. Answer: Samson's birth was announced by an angel to his barren mother. He was to be a Nazirite from birth, meaning he could not drink wine, touch dead bodies, or cut his hair, as his strength came from God through this vow. Question 8. What were some of Samson's feats of strength, and what was his ultimate downfall? Answer: Samson killed a lion barehanded, defeated 1,000 Philistines with a donkey's jawbone, and carried off the gates of Gaza. His downfall came when he revealed the secret of his strength to Delilah, who cut his hair, leading to his capture and blindness. He died pulling down the temple of Dagon on the Philistines. Question 9. What is the significance of the story of Micah and his idol? Answer: The story of Micah, who made an idol and hired a Levite as his personal priest, illustrates the religious confusion and moral decay of the time, where people did whatever they pleased, ignoring God's laws. Question 10. What is the concluding statement of the Book of Judges, and what does it signify? Answer: The concluding statement is, In those days there was no king in Israel. Everyone did what was right in his own eyes. It signifies the spiritual and moral chaos of the period and sets the stage for the establishment of the monarchy. Round 68. The Book of Ruth in detail. Question 1. During what historical period does the story of Ruth take place? Answer: the story takes place during the time of the Judges, a period characterized by spiritual decline and instability. Question 2. Why did Elimelech and Naomi leave Bethlehem and go to Moab? Answer: they left Bethlehem, which means house of bread, because of a severe famine in the land, seeking food and survival in the neighboring country of Moab. Question 3. What tragedy befell Naomi's family in Moab? Answer: Elimelech died, leaving Naomi a widow. Her 2 sons, Mahlon and Chilion, married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. But both sons also died, leaving Naomi and her daughters-in-law destitute. Question 4. What was Ruth's famous declaration of loyalty to Naomi? Answer: Ruth declared, "Where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried." Question 5. How did Ruth provide for herself and Naomi when they returned to Bethlehem? Answer: Ruth gleaned in the barley fields, picking up the leftover grain behind the harvesters, a provision in the law for the poor and foreigners. She happened to glean in the field of Boaz. Question 6. Who was Boaz, and what was his relationship to Naomi's family? Answer: Boaz was a wealthy and prominent man in Bethlehem, and he was a close relative of Naomi's deceased husband, Elimelech. Question 7. What was the role of a kinsman redeemer, Goel? Answer: a kinsman redeemer was a close relative responsible for protecting the family's interests, which could include buying back sold land, redeeming a relative from slavery, or marrying a childless widow to carry on the deceased husband's name. Question 8. Describe the interaction between Ruth and Boaz at the threshing floor. Answer: following Naomi's instructions, Ruth went to the threshing floor at night, uncovered Boaz's feet, and lay down. When he awoke, she asked him to spread his cloak over her, a symbolic request for marriage and redemption. Question 9. How did Boaz secure the right to marry Ruth? Answer: Boaz went to the town gate and met with a closer relative who had the first right of redemption. When the closer relative declined because it would impair his own inheritance, Boaz legally acquired the land and the right to marry Ruth. Question 10. What is the genealogical significance of the Book of Ruth? Answer: Ruth and Boaz had a son named Obed, who became the father of Jesse, who was the father of King David. Thus, Ruth, a Moabite woman, became an ancestor of Jesus Christ, demonstrating God's inclusive grace. Round 69. The books of 1 and 2 Samuel in detail. Question 1. Describe the calling of Samuel as a young boy in the tabernacle. Answer: Samuel was sleeping in the tabernacle when God called his name 3 times. Eli the priest realized it was God and told Samuel to answer, "Speak, Lord, for your servant hears." God then revealed his judgment against Eli's house. Question 2. Why did the Israelites demand a king, and how did God and Samuel react? Answer: The Israelites demanded a king to be like the surrounding nations and to lead them in battle, as Samuel's sons were corrupt. Samuel was displeased, and God told him they were not rejecting Samuel, but rejecting God as their king. Question 3. Who was Saul, and what were the circumstances of his anointing as king? Answer: Saul was a tall, handsome Benjamite looking for his father's lost donkeys. God directed Samuel to him, and Samuel privately anointed him. Later, Saul was publicly chosen by Lot at Mizpah. Question 4. What were the key events that led to God rejecting Saul as king? Answer: Saul offered an unauthorized sacrifice instead of waiting for Samuel, and later, he disobeyed God's command to completely destroy the Amalekites, keeping the best of the livestock and sparing King Agag. Question 5. Describe the anointing of David by Samuel. Answer: God sent Samuel to Bethlehem to the house of Jesse. After reviewing Jesse's older sons, God chose the youngest, David, a shepherd boy, emphasizing that God looks at the heart, not outward appearance. Samuel anointed him. Question 6. Recount the story of David and Goliath. Answer: Goliath, a Philistine giant, defied the armies of Israel. David, armed only with a sling and 5 smooth stones, trusted in God and struck Goliath in the forehead, killing him and securing victory for Israel. Question 7. Describe the relationship between David and Jonathan. Answer: Jonathan, Saul's son, and David formed a deep, covenantal friendship. Jonathan recognized God's favor on David, protected him from Saul's murderous plots, and willingly yielded his right to the throne to David. Question 8. Why did David flee from Saul, and how did he spare Saul's life? Answer: Saul grew intensely jealous of David's success and popularity and repeatedly tried to kill him. David fled into the wilderness. On 2 occasions, David had the opportunity to kill Saul but spared him, refusing to harm the Lord's anointed. Question 9. What were the circumstances of Saul's death? Answer: Saul and his sons, including Jonathan, were killed in battle against the Philistines on Mount Gilboa. Severely wounded, Saul fell on his own sword to avoid capture and torture. Question 10. Describe David's sin with Bathsheba and the prophet Nathan's confrontation. Answer: David committed adultery with Bathsheba and arranged for her husband, Uriah, to be killed in battle to cover it up. Nathan confronted David with a parable about a rich man stealing a poor man's lamb, leading to David's deep repentance. Psalm 51. Round 70. The books of 1 and 2 Kings in detail. Question 1. How did Solomon become king, and what was his request to God? Answer: Solomon, son of David and Bathsheba, was anointed king after a succession struggle. When God appeared to him in a dream and offered him anything, Solomon asked for wisdom to govern the people, which pleased God. Question 2. Describe the building and dedication of Solomon's temple. Answer: Solomon built a magnificent temple in Jerusalem, fulfilling David's desire. It took 7 years to build. At its dedication, the Ark of the Covenant was brought in, and the glory of the Lord filled the temple in a thick cloud. Question 3. What led to the division of the kingdom after Solomon's death? Answer: Solomon's heavy taxation and forced labor, along with his idolatry influenced by his many foreign wives, led to dissatisfaction. After his death, his son Rehoboam refused to lighten the burden, causing the 10 northern tribes to rebel. Question 4. Who were Jeroboam and Rehoboam, and what kingdoms did they rule? Answer: Rehoboam, Solomon's son, ruled the southern kingdom of Judah and Benjamin. Jeroboam, a former official of Solomon, led the rebellion and became the first king of the northern kingdom of Israel. Question 5. Describe the ministry of Elijah, focusing on the contest at Mount Carmel. Answer: Elijah was a prophet who confronted the idolatry of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel. At Mount Carmel, he challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest to see whose God would answer by fire. God sent fire, consuming the sacrifice, proving he is the true God. Question 6. Who was Elisha, and what were some of his notable miracles? Answer: Elisha was Elijah's successor, receiving a double portion of his spirit. His miracles included parting the Jordan River, purifying a poisoned spring, multiplying a widow's oil, raising a Shunammite son, and healing Naaman of leprosy. Question 7. Describe the fall of the northern kingdom of Israel. Answer: The northern kingdom of Israel was characterized by continuous idolatry and unstable dynasties. In 722 BC, God allowed the Assyrian Empire to conquer Samaria, the capital, and deport the Israelites, ending the northern kingdom. Question 8. Who was King Hezekiah, and what were his major accomplishments? Answer: Hezekiah was a righteous king of Judah who trusted God, removed idols, and restored temple worship. During his reign, God miraculously delivered Jerusalem from the Assyrian army of Sennacherib by sending an angel to strike down the soldiers. Question 9. Who was King Josiah, and what significant discovery occurred during his reign? Answer: Josiah was a righteous king who began ruling at age 8. During temple repairs, the book of the law was found. Josiah read it, repented on behalf of the nation, and instituted sweeping religious reforms to eradicate idolatry. Question 10. Describe the fall of the southern kingdom of Judah and the Babylonian exile. Answer: despite Josiah's reforms, Judah eventually fell back into sin. In 586 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon conquered Jerusalem, destroyed the temple, and deported the majority of the people to Babylon, beginning the 70-year exile. This concludes our fifth segment.